Elaine says, I can't burn anything. I get anxious if I see smoke, so I use sound and smudge spray. Hey, whatever works. Smudge sprays are great. These are smudge sprays. You can make your own. There's all kinds of different ones you can have. I prefer making my own because that way you know what's going into it. Just saying. Probably a better option if you know what's going into it. I see Jessica also wants to know. Yes. Frankincense is great as well. You have to use like these sort of pucks. It's like little charcoal pucks to light frankincense. But it's great, especially if you're being messed with. Like if you think that there might be some, just getting picked on by the dark side a little bit, frankincense is a good one. Same with myrrh. Myrrh is also good. Makes you wonder why they give those things to Jesus. And then once you start studying what frankincense and myrrh can do, you're like, okay, now I get it. That was psychic protection. They were giving Jesus money and psychic protection as gifts. Very handy. At least once every 2 weeks, I have a guest on that does clearings. So if you guys watch the podcast every day, chances are you're going to get somebody that'll come on. Either Siddhartha will do clearings or one of our Salation friends. We always have opportunities popping up at least maybe once a week, or it's every 2 weeks or so. So make sure that you come back on Wednesday for a recheck. Otherwise, you can always book an emergency with me. We do emergency clearings every day. Snowy says Yeshua got the Starseed starter pack. No kidding. I'm pretty sure that Yeshua is actually, because a lot of people have had different theories about where Yeshua came from. I'm pretty sure he's Lyran. Yeah, that's chances are if you're feeling always tired, then yeah. If you're always tired, like you go to sleep tired, you wake up tired, chances are you're being messed with. Especially if you're an astral traveler. Anybody have any weird dreams recently? Have any lucid dreaming they want to share? Because I have an astral projection class coming up. So I'm going to be talking a little bit more about astral projection because there's a lot of people that don't really know what it is or that you do it all the time without realizing it. Lots of people astral project without being aware of it. You know how I can tell if there's somebody in the home that astral projects? Can somebody guess? If I look at your report, your SRT report, what is the first thing I notice if you've been astral projecting a lot? What's the biggest red flag? There's going to be something on your report that is numerous. Can somebody guess what it's going to be? It's the most common thing that astral projectionists leave around the house. Bingo! Yep. If you said portals, you hit it right on the knob. Portals are your doorways. You're coming and going. If you leave doors open, you're leaving portals around the house. Most people that astral project, they leave tons of portals. If I've seen more than 10 portals in your house, there's an astral projectionist in the house. I guarantee it. Not even beasties leave that many doors open. Just saying. They tend to use the same doors. So if beasties are coming and going, then you'll see up to about 5 portals in the house. If there's a lot of electronics in the house, if you have a smart home, that's another red flag. Smart homes tend to have a lot of portals too. If you're like, I'm not talking about like clap on, clap off kind of technology. I'm talking like being able to speak to your house. Be like, hey Siri, turn down the lights. Hey Siri, turn up the heat. Hey Siri, do this, do that. You're going to have tons of portals. But they're going to be small portals. They're not going to be big. They're going to be stuck in your electronics. They're going to be kind of hidden throughout your electronics in the house. But if you've got more than 10 big portals all over the house, I guarantee that's because you're leaving the door open every time you come and go. Kat says popping through these dimensions like a portal jumper. Anybody ever seen the movie Jumper? Since you mentioned Jumper, I may as well mention it. You ever see the movie Jumper? It's kind of like that, except not physical. Because if you think of a place when you're astral projecting, you just go there. So that's what they do in the movie Jumper. You look at a picture or you think of a place and you jump through, you create a portal and you jump through the portal. Well, that's exactly how it works in the astral. If you think about a place, a certain location, or a person, you open a portal, you open a doorway, and you jump. But the door stays open behind you because you didn't fucking shut the door. So if you didn't shut the door, then no matter where you go, there's going to be doors left open everywhere you went. Gemma says, yes, dreams about strange houses and earthbound spirits attached to these houses. Interesting. So you're doing spirit release work in your sleep, Gemma. That's what I do. I do that too. Also, a lot of anxiety. Don't matter how much I have as exercise as I do, I'm always tired. So I really need a clearing with you because that my intuition is saying. Feel free to message me, Florina, on the page. I'm happy to assist. I astral travel all the time. Just told Mike about today's adventure just a bit ago. Thank you for closing portals for us. We had our clearing last month. Oh, you're so welcome, Amy. You can close portals yourself. This is something I will teach you guys in my astral projection class. My astral projection class is going to be next Saturday on the 18th. So for those of you who are interested in learning more about how to, just even if you're a beginner, there's going to be a lot of information. Or if you're somebody who's more advanced and want to be better at astral projection, I have both included in there. So from beginners to advanced, I got you covered. But some of the information in there is going to be really important in regards to just how to close down portals after you've done your, after you wake up in the morning. Like an example, closing portals is really easy. You just set the intention, go counterclockwise with your hand. There was a funny time I found a mirror in somebody's bathroom, and I was like, a portal in somebody's mirror. And I was like, oh, did they open that through blah, blah, blah? And they said, no, actually, they did it by wiping condensation off the mirror. I was like, really? So they're like, yeah, make sure that you tell them to swipe left, not right, as they're swiping condensation off the mirror, because that is how easy it is to open a portal. That's it. Open. Very easy. You don't even have to know that you can do it, and you've done it. So it's the opposite when you try to close them. Counterclockwise. You can also spin 3 times counterclockwise, set the intention to close all portals in your space. And that is one of many ways to close portals. You can find them with dowsing rods if you want to know where the portals are in your house. Chances are they're in the bedroom because that's the most common bedroom and kitchen of all places. Kat says, treat your mirrors like Tinder. Swipe left. Yep, you swipe left. Yeah, the thing about portals, right, is that they can be opened without even intending. One of the most common ways portals are opened is through fear. So if you're walking around in public, guess where the most common places are to find portals in public? Intersections, crosswalks, places that are kind of shady and scary. Like if there's a location that there's a lot of like nervous energy, there's going to be a lot of portals there. And the interesting thing about portals is that, well, there's different things that come and go from them. They can be high vibe portals, they can be low vibe portals, all kinds of stuff. Electricity can even open portals because of the way the energy is flowing. Sometimes that can open portals. This is why we find a lot of portals in weird places. We found them in remotes, like TV remotes. We found them in smoke detectors, microwaves. I even found one in an electric armchair, like one of those grandpa chairs that you can recline in, and it's got the buttons in it. We even found portals in those. We have found, and it was interesting is that whoever was using that chair was literally sitting in a portal that whole time. So we're like, ooh, that's not good. Making yourself easy access. Can both high and low beings use the same portal that's been opened by us? Yes and no. It depends on where the doorway is to. Because you open high vibe doorways, you open low vibe doorways, you open doorways to certain locations. Yeah, there's all kinds of different ones. There's natural portals, there's artificial portals. Natural portals are the ones that are opened by energy flow or by us through intention. Artificial portals are like the ones that made by technology, like CERN. CERN is a giant portal generator, just for the record. They're low frequency portal generators, so they open portals to the lower astral. We have found portals in some crazy and weird places. Once found one at the bottom of somebody's smart washer. Yes, that's not right. That's right. I forgot about the smart washer. Have you ever asked if Narnia is real? I don't know why that just keeps popped into my mind. Everything is real. Everything's got different names, which confuses it. But there's all kinds of different realms that exist. Why do you think there's so many movies and stories about people that enter portals and not realize what they've done? And then they're like, oh my God, I'm in a whole new realm that I didn't even mean to be in. Lots of people get lost too. That's why the Fae are so feared in Scotland and Ireland. As people go messing around in Fae areas and then they disappear. It's interesting. Gemma just said animals are portal detectors. Well, animals can see portals. They can also see entities and earthbounds too, just for the record. But you know, I was doing a clearing on my neighbor not too long ago. It's a long story, but there's a horse farm in between, and so we were clearing around the house, the barns, the farm. We were even clearing around some of the paddocks because I'm like, you know, may as well check, right? So we checked, and there was a portal in the middle of the field. And I said something to them. I was like, "Oh, a portal in the field." They're like, "Yeah, it's a big one. The horses don't like it." And I was like, "Interesting. Where is it?" And they said, "Oh, paddock over to the right next to the house with the blah blah blah." And I was like, "Okay." So I said something to my neighbor like a week or so later. I'm like, "Oh, by the way, we cleared that spot. We cleared around the farm, and there was a big portal in the field next to the house." And she's like, "The one on this side of this paddock?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Huh, that's interesting." And I said, "Why do you say that?" She goes, "The horses didn't want to be in that field." And I was like, "Really? Why didn't what do you mean they didn't want to be in the field?" I would let them into the field, and instead of them running around the field, they would stand by the gate waiting for us to come and get them. Like they walked into the field, turned around, stood at the gate, like, and they don't normally do that. And she's just like, "Well, that's interesting. That's why I don't usually put them in that." So maybe that's why the horses didn't want to be in the field, because there was a big portal in the middle of it. Who knows? But it was very interesting that she was like, "Huh, of all fields, that's the one where they act the strangest." Go figure. Animals are so intelligent, and I think they're getting smarter too. Has anybody noticed that with the 5D shift intensifying, animals are getting better at their ability to communicate with humans and just express with themselves in ways that we haven't been able to do? Like, obviously, people have been kind of like split in between about the idea about animals and how intelligent they are and whether or not they really understand English. But now you get animals that are literally like pretty much speaking English through all kinds of things, like the buttons and through sign language and all kinds of stuff. So animals are getting more and more heightened in regards to intelligence as well. Or maybe they just always were this intelligent, but we're getting smart enough to notice. Maybe we were too stupid to notice they were always this smart. Michelle says, "I have a cat that showed up in my yard last year that is definitely telepathic." Yep. Cats, especially. Cats are very spiritual. You know what's interesting? We've done a lot of pet clearings, especially Carolyn and I, because Carolyn and I love doing the pet clearings. And so we've been finding the number one area that we find implants on cats is their third eye. They do. They put third eye implants in cats. And I was like, well, almost every time we find a cat that's being messed with, that's not sovereign, that's not a happy cat, that's what we find, is we find blockages in their third eye. So they do that to healers. They do that to healers as well. So isn't that interesting that our cats are getting the same kind of similar implants that we are? And cats also have a lot more past life resonances too. Cats, dogs, and horses, I've noticed, have the most past life resonances. So cats, dogs, and horses carried their trauma with them. We actually cleared a horse yesterday, and there was some past life trauma that was linked between the owner and the horse. So they had shared past life resonances. This is another reason why she was so concerned about her health of her horse and was like, "I'm really worried about my horse. Is my horse okay?" And we check, and the horse was, well, there was a Mothman. Not a Mothman. Was it a trash panda that was harassing the horse? Make sure you keep your barns clear too, not just your house, but your animals too. You're answering a question I've had. Aren't you a cat? I'm sitting right now. Oh, interesting, Natalie. I think of Luna from Sailor Moon with the symbol on her third eye. See? Oh, yeah. Animals can get implants too. In fact, they are very spiritual. They're more spiritual than we are in many cases because they can see. They know what's going on. It's kind of funny. Like Katie Jordan has a dog that we would be hanging out doing clearings and stuff. And whenever Katie and I were just hanging out, the dog would behave normal. He'd be like laying on the floor and this and that. But as soon as Katie went into trance, the dog would start acting up. She had to kick the dog out of the room before we could do trance because the dog would start freaking out. Like, "That's not my mom." Like, and it makes you wonder what they see when mediums are in trance. Do they see like a new person come through? Does the face change? Because we've seen people's faces change many times when they're channeling, right? So it does make you wonder, like, what are the animals seeing when we're doing channeling? What are the animals seeing when we have attachments? So are they seeing like you, but then the attachment as well? Probably. This is part of the reason why some animals respond the way they do to certain people, because perhaps they're seeing more than just the person. I have 2 cats in my lap. I was told is where they sit during the podcast, and the dog sits next to me. As soon as Lara laughs, he has to come over and see Lara. Oh, love that, Daniel Jackson. Oh, your fur baby sounds so sweet. Jordan says, oh, I forgot to tell y'all on Friday I was getting unnaturally angry, and so was my 4-year-old in the middle of yelling. And in the middle of the day, I saw a shadow person peep its head around the corner in my daughter's room. And when I looked at it, retreated its head really quick. Shadow people like to peep around corners like that. There's a lot of shadow people around recently. I've been hearing quite a lot about them. And I joked that maybe they're just around in spooky season, because you do tend to see them more around spooky season. So it makes you wonder. What is it about this month? Maybe just the veil is thinner this month, so we see them more. The shadow people, they're not what people normally expect. And there's different versions of shadow people, technically, because I guess you could consider watchers to be shadow people too, even though they're different. Like a watcher and a shadow person are completely different things. However, they look very similar. So I was telling Aiden was actually torn between being a shadow person or a Mothman for Halloween. So he's decided on Mothman. so I get to make a Mothman costume for Halloween. It's going to be fun. I'll make sure to show you guys some pictures. But shadow people are the ones that tend to have, most of the time they have like some kind of an outfit, like a jacket or a cape or a hat. I don't know. They're very dapper. I don't know why. That's just how they prefer to depict themselves. They're kleptomaniacs too. Like, you better keep an eye on your shit. Florina says, what's a Mothman? Well, there's lots of different ones, which is kind of funny. You get different versions of Mothman depending on what that's a Mothman. And I asked what they look like. I've spoken with the guides about it quite a few times. And I was even talking, I forget which medium it was I was talking with. I think it might have been Carol and her cat the other day. But I'm like, will you describe a Mothman for me? Like, are they hairy? Are they fuzzy? And they were like, well, it's kind of like a bumblebee fuzz. I'm like, Are their wings furry? They're like, yeah, they're furry wings. Kind of like that bumblebee fuzz. But it's not like nice bumblebee fuzz. It's like patchy old teddy bear kind of bumblebee fuzz. And I'm like, okay, then I can see that in my mind's eye. Yes. It was you, Carolyn. I thought that was you. She's like, yeah, they kind of look like old patchy bumblebee teddy bear fuzz. But that's what they are. They're covered. Like, if you think about a hairy moth and how moths kind of got that furry thing going on, they do that too. Like a nasty velvet material. Yeah, kind of. And that's all over their bodies. And they're mostly like pitch black, and they've got like these big red eyes. And like I said, they got kind of like this furry thing going on. And their wings are big and fuzzy as well. And it's really funny when we find them because they're dumb as shit. They really are. No offense to the Mothmen out there, but they're pretty dumb. In fact, one of them, we were doing a clearing on the house. And I was like, can you just check around the outer perimeter of the house? Because something tells me there's more. And sure enough, we check the outside of the house and we find a Mothman like up against the wall, trying to seem flat. Like, you can't see me. Like, nope, nobody can see me. I'm flat. Like, up against the wall. Like, okay then. Carolyn says the scientific description: patchy, hairy, matted bumblebee. Yes. How do they affect people? Well, they kind of smell like mothballs, Kat says. That's funny. How do they affect people? Well, in most cases, they drain energy from you. They mess with your dream state. They just kind of hang out in your house and occupy your space. We have seen them lay eggs and make nests. So just be aware that they're more moth-like than humanoid type, if you know what I mean. It's kind of, I don't know. They're kind of gross. Out of all three, though, and I'm gonna have to ask the mediums this. Hey, Kat, which one's grosser? So a Mothman or a trash panda? I'm just curious. Which one? Because the trash pandas, they're hybrids. They're kind of like a reptilian gray hybrid. They're nasty. They smell like burnt trash, like hot old stinky summer trash. If you know what I mean. If you ever like forget to take your trash out, like for like a week, and then you go back and it's like, oh my god, that's kind of how they smell to me. Kat says they're attracted to bright lights, like a moth. You don't say. Imagine that. Florina says maybe that's what's draining my energy. Chances are what's draining your energy is a bunch of earthbounds. I've noticed that earthbounds tend to drain energy the most, I think, other than Lizzies. Lizzies will drain your energy down to nothing in 5 minutes. Like, I've been hit hard by a Lizzie once, and it felt like all the energy was sucked out through my feet. Okay, so that's the one that drains your energy the most, I think. But if you have a bunch of earthbounds on you, like they will drain your energy very quick. In fact, I think it's the earthbounds. Like, if you think about it, right? If you're dealing with a Lizzie attachment, generally you're going to feel really ungrounded. You're going to feel kind of sickly. You're going to feel kind of like you just got like really bad headaches, and everything is just going to feel really off, right? That's generally what Lizzies make you feel like. Demonics make you feel like you got the flu. Like your stomach is all upset. So demonics even give you the shits. Like, I'm not even kidding. They fuck up your whole, like, body function, right? And then you also, with demonics, you feel really depressed. You're going to feel really down, really just like in a funk, right? But with earthbounds, generally you just feel drained. You feel exhausted. You have phantom pain around. You're going to have weird thoughts popping up in your head because a lot of times they're trying to talk to you or they're trying to talk to each other. And you're going to pick up on that and be like, that's odd. I wonder what that is. Like me the other day, the grays. If you have an illness that will not go away, especially if it's becoming a serious illness, I would check in just to make sure that there isn't a gray around, because the grays are the ones that do the most damage to you physically. They can ruin your whole vessel within months. So just be aware that, I mean, you could go from being a completely healthy person to being on your deathbed within 6 months to a year if the grays are putting a lot of effort into making you sick. We have seen it many times. In fact, whenever there's some kind of a strange illness that the doctors can't figure out and it's really aggressive form of illness, that's usually the grays. Equally gross, Kat says, but in a different way. Trash pandas smell rancid and they affect your vitality more and mess with your home, whereas Mothmen are dumber, but they can really cause some chaos in the physical human body. They just attach and stick around. That makes sense. How would you know if you have grays, Lara? Generally, you're going to have weird dreams sometimes, depending on how well they're flashy thinking you, kind of. But no, the grays do a lot of damage. If you're sick and it's not getting better and you don't know why and the doctors can't find what's wrong with you, especially if you have like severe pain in a certain location and nobody can find anything wrong, usually there's some kind of a freaky gray implant there. Because that's what they do. They leave their tech all over the place. Not just on you, but in your house. I've never seen so many grays as we have recently. Grays used to be quite rare, and that's a good thing. Of all the things that we could find, right? Like, there's all kinds of stuff. We find octopuses on people. We find demonics. We find reptilians. We find, we find tons of earthbounds. On occasion, we find hybrids. Hybrids are more rare than Lizzies and demonics. Those are the two most common, is the Lizzies and demonics. They're everywhere. They're fucking everywhere, especially the Lizzies right now. But in regards to like the Mothmen and the hybrids, those are quite rare. In fact, if you have a hybrid or a Mothman on your report, you should be like, okay, why are they attracted to me? There's either a sky portal around, or maybe they're coming from your neighbor's place, or maybe you just have a lot of clutter and junk around, because they do tend to love that. But out of all the things to deal with, the grays are the worst. Yep, the grays are the worst, hands down. I'd rather deal with Lizzies all day long than a fucking gray. I'm just saying. Like, Lizzies are relatively easy to deal with because they're dumb as shit and you just send them to source. But the grays, you're messing with a collective. I should say a collective is messing with you. So you can send 20 of them to source. They're going to keep coming. Yep, they'll keep coming. We'll clear 3 of them every time, and then they'll keep coming. So it'll be like, okay, why are they so obsessed with this person? Well, generally, there's either some kind of a contract involved or some sort of past life resonance involved. If they're messing with you, chances are they messed with you in other lifetimes or in your youth and all kinds of stuff. You might notice it in your dream state that you're having weird dreams that don't really make sense. You know how in movies sometimes they'll say like you don't see the gray, but you see like an owl or something? That is actually true, where you'll have weird dreams that'll feature some kind of owl or some kind of being, and you're like, I wonder why. And then sure enough, it finds out that was actually like a glimmer, where they show you a false image, a false representation of what you were actually seeing. As we call them glimmers. Hi, Loy. Loy says they make you angry and emotional too if that's already within you. Remember how they were swarming that house I used to live in with that one person? Well, once there's an opportunity, they're all opportunistic. Every single one of them. That's the one thing that all entities have in common. They're all opportunistic. They all want an easy term too. They don't want to fight for it. So the more you kind of stand up for yourself, the more you fight back and push back, and the more you smudge your space and raise the vibration of your space, and you make your environment inhospitable to them, then they're not going to bother. They're going to go and pick on somebody else. They want an easy target. So if you're not making yourself an easy target, then generally they'll go and pick on somebody else. So that is one of the main reasons why I'm always harping on and on about psychic protection and spiritual hygiene and raising your vibration, raising the vibration of your house, of your workspace, of your vehicles. Entities love to jump in vehicles as you're driving around dealing with assholes on the road. They love it. They will jump from car to car. So make sure that you have crystals in your car. I have organite in my car. I also keep sage in my car. I keep Palo Santo in my car. If things are getting weird, I definitely start burning sage in my car just to be on the safe. It is this mini house that you're driving around in, and you bring stuff home with you all the time. Christine says, does loud music get rid of them? Depends on the loud music. If it's high frequency music and high vibrational and loving and happy music, then yeah, generally they're going to be like, ugh, and they run away because that's not what they like at all. They like the opposite of that. But it depends. I mean, my favorite thing to play when I know that there's some asshole around that's trying to mess with my house or mess with me, I put on Krishna flute music. Lizzies absolutely hate Krishna flute music. They can't stand it. It drives them nuts, actually. The guides thought that was really funny. Because I came up with that. I was being harassed. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to, because they kept coming into my house even when I wasn't here. So I was like, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. Even when I'm not home, I'm going to play Krishna flute music. In fact, if you go on YouTube, you can find Krishna flute music in 432 hertz or 444 hertz. And you play it for 10 hours on the TV. That's what I do. If I'm not home, I'll just play Krishna flute music all day long. Maybe that's why the Fae attack me in my own house. They're more like, I'm being driven insane. So Krishna flute music, look it up online. You'll see it. Lizzies can't stand it. It's just high frequency music. And any high frequency music they don't like. They don't even like bells. Have you noticed that like America used to have bells everywhere? I'm saying America because you Europeans, you still have bells everywhere. So I'm used to this. You guys already know. We noticed that in France, didn't we, Amy? Bells everywhere. And that's good. Bells are great. Bells are what you want. In fact, we were walking around in Rennes-le-Chateau and there were bells that go off every 15 minutes. And then later on, we noticed that all the Lizzies were in the tunnels underground and the only thing walking around on the top of the hill was the Greys. And I asked the guides, I was like, how come it's only Greys walking around? How come the Lizzies are all in the tunnels underground? And they just said, bells. I was like, oh, ha, okay. Because, yeah, that makes sense. The Lizzies can't stand bells, but the Greys, they don't give a shit. The Greys don't really care about anything. You can play Krishna flute music all day long. The Greys will be like, rocking out like that owl in the church in that one video. Like, the Greys don't mind Krishna flute music. They don't mind anything, the fuckers. You could literally be wearing an armor, you know, literally designed of Organite, and they'll be like, what are you going to do with that? It's one of the reasons why the Greys are the one thing you don't want around. Of all the things to have around, the Greys, ugh, no. They're the worst ones. I send Steve and Merlin out to clear the other cars around me, especially if I'm in heavy traffic because of a wreck or construction. It's funny because when I do that, I normally have a cushion of space around me. There's a lot of stuff like that on the road, just saying. This is one of the reasons why, where do we see in public, right? We find a lot of portals open on roads and intersections and crosswalks. So this is one of the reasons why accidents happen in those locations, because portals cause accidents. How do they do that? Well, entities come out of the portals and they cause accidents. They do it a lot. That's how these things generally happen in the first place, is most of the time there's an entity involved. Leanne says, I created an astral bug zapper for each room. You can create it however you choose. It's great. I'm telling you, it works. Anya says, I somehow always end up in an apartment next to a church. And when I move, it was always not, it doesn't work. And then 3 months each time the church bells begin to work. There you go. Those church bells are important, actually. And wind chimes are really good as well. Yep, I have tons of wind chimes around my house. I have big ones. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, you don't even want to know what my wind chime budget is. I have them in all four, like, I have them dotted around my house. In fact, my biggest wind chime is like this big. I'm not even kidding. So the higher the frequency, the better for the wind chimes, just saying. I know some people don't want the high, you know, ting, 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 ting sound all the time, but trust me, neither do the entities. The entities don't like that either. Also, remember not to have a welcome mat in front of your house. If you have a welcome mat that says welcome, you may as well not even lock your doors. You may as well just say, come on in. All the beasties in the neighborhood, all the earthbounds, come on in, welcome. So you're better off having like a come back with a warrant one on your front porch instead. But anything that you can have in regards to high frequency tones around your house is really helpful for keeping the vibe up of the space. Wasn't there a period in history when they removed and banned all the bells? I don't know. Maybe they called it the Dark Ages. I don't know. Makes you wonder. I'm telling you, the Dark Ages was the Dark Ages for a reason. It was rampant with entities. And I know how I sound, but I've had that confirmed by the guides, just for the record. I was like, why was it so bad back then? Well, beasties were having a field day. Now I wonder where the welcome mat came from. I have a gnome that has a welcome sign inside my house, and I saw one in my room. Well, see, there you go. You're even telling all the fae, come on in. Make yourself at home. Everybody's house, your house, you share with a lot of different beings that you aren't even aware of. And especially if you lived in a house that's been vacant for a while. Like, I had a client the other day be like, well, my family home was vacant for like 10 years or so. And then we decided to move back into the house and fix it up all nice and stuff. And then we checked, and there was so many entities in that house. And I was like, first of all, holy shit, why are there so many entities? And they said, well, it's mostly level ones too. And they were like, well, this person actually, you know, this is what happens. If you move out, entities move in. They're like, oh, sweet. Even like little ones, like, I'm not even talking about the big beasties. I'm talking about the little ones, like the fae and the larger elemental types. It didn't help that that person had a firehouse across the street. And I was like, why are there so many earthbounds in this property too? Like, this is really strange. And they're like, it's from the business across the street. And I'm like, business across the street? So I looked it up on Google Maps, and I'm like, it's a fucking firehouse. I'm like, holy shit. No wonder they've got so many earthbounds. And they're like, yeah, let's clear the firehouse too. And I'm like, I'm just curious, because I used to run ambulance. How many people, like, because I mean, I was a first responder. I was actually in training to be a paramedic. I couldn't work on children. That's why I quit. I was like, nope, can't do it. I didn't have the stomach to work on children. I can work on adults all day long, but not children. Nope, couldn't do it. So I was wondering, I'm just curious, like, how haunted is that ambulance across the street? So they check, and they're like, oh, there's 5 earthbounds in the ambulance. And I was like, shit, 5 earthbounds in the ambulance. Yep. Like, wow, you don't think about that, about how ambulances are haunted. Probably all of them. Although there was that one video that we saw like a couple months ago where all the crew jumped out of the ambulance. Did you guys see that? Where they left the ambulance in the middle of the street with all the lights and stuff running? Because there was some freaky shit going on in the ambulance that scared the medics so bad they jumped out. Michelle says people die in the hospital on the way to the hospital all the time. Yep, they do. It's really weird that you're talking about the Winchester heiress last night, Christine. I was watching something about her last night. That's bizarre. That's serendipitous right there that you're mentioning her right now. Christine says the Winchester heiress was prompted to never stop building on her house by entities. Anything is possible. Who knows? They say that so for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, the Winchester is the heiress of the person who created the family line that created the Winchester. Is it handguns, rifles, and all of that stuff? They make a whole bunch of stuff. It's really funny you're saying that because last night where I was literally watching a video about the Winchester house. That's really strange that you say that. Maybe we're meant to clear that house. She slept in a different room every night too, so they couldn't find her. Yeah, they say that the story goes that she's being tormented by all the souls that have been killed by a Winchester. Could you imagine? I don't know. That's not actually a thing. You're not going to, even if your family, she wasn't the one that created all the weapons anyway. She's just the benefactor of all of that money coming in. Got to call Sam and Dean to clear out the house. Cat. Your cousins. Interesting. Well, maybe that's why you're interested in clearing it out. I would be, honestly, that would be a good house to check, just out of curiosity. Wasn't there a movie like that? Was it The Haunting? That's what it reminds me of. She would also never let anyone take her photograph. Interesting. Good to know. I'm very curious about stories like this. The older, the better. We'll just have to add it to the list of interesting historical places to check. We're actually going to be doing quite a lot of historical clearings very soon because we're having all kinds of exciting events planned. So we're going to be, as I mentioned, we're going to be in Salem in like less than 3 weeks. We're going to be just outside of Boston and Salem. We're staying right in between the two, actually. So we're going to be doing a lot of clearings around that area. It'll be Bradley, Kat, and I are going on a ghost busting tour to kind of clear out some locations around there. We're also planning on doing a Gettysburg one and a whole bunch of other ones because I live 30 minutes from Gettysburg and it's been driving me nuts that we haven't cleared more of it. Especially because I died at Gettysburg. I'm curious now. Do I have soul fragments to collect? Maybe. We're going to de-haunt Salem the best we can. Yeah, we are, Kat. I wouldn't be surprised to see if you guys find portals in that house. We find portals in every house. I have never written 0 portals on somebody's report unless they had a clearing recently. I can tell if you've had a clearing recently because rechecks, there's not much to write on your report after you've had a recheck. But every time, even with a recheck, there are portals open and there's thought forms. I don't think I've ever written down on a report, no portals found, unless you're doing like a family clearing and I just cleared them for, like, if you got your mom and your dad and your brother on the report and I clear your mom and everybody lives in the same house, then yeah, we already closed all portals. Those, you're not going to find any in that instance. But if I'm just checking one person in the house, even if it's been a week since I've last checked that person, I guarantee there's going to be cords, parasites, negative thought forms, and portals open. Those are on every single report. I don't care if you got a clearing 48 hours ago. Most people have thought forms back because people are very negative thinkers. Even myself, I have thought forms that pop up. So everybody has thought forms that they pop up that are actually not very beneficial thought forms. So this is another reason why it's really important to be mindful of how you think and the way that you speak to yourself and the way that you think about yourself. Because if you're beating yourself up for any reason, I guarantee there's going to be a thought form. Daniel Jackson says, we rechecked you and your socks are inside out. Carol says, how can we close portals ourselves? Counterclockwise. Counterclockwise. Every time. Like this. Counterclockwise. Set your intention to close all portals. Counterclockwise. Swipe left. Right? You can also spin 3 times counterclockwise. So you spin like a little kid, whee, spinning 3 times, spin your whole body 3 times. Set the intention. Don't just spin, but set the intention to close all portals. You can even say it out loud. I'm closing all portals, all entity open portals and all portals that I have opened or portals that have been opened by children because children leave the door open all the time too. When I catch a negative thought, I immediately ask my guys to remove it and not return those thoughts. Same here, Cynthia. You got to catch them out. You can transmute a negative thought. So if a negative thought pops up and be like, oh, that was so dumb. And be like, no, that wasn't dumb. I was learning. I'm learning. I'm having an experience. Don't call yourself dumb. Say, I'm learning. Even if you do something dumb, don't call yourself out and be like, well, that was really fucking stupid. Because then you're just going to end up shaming yourself for doing something that you believe is dumb, even if you learn something from it. If you learn something from it, it's not dumb. So it's actually a good thing. Technically, even if it feels like, wow, that was stupid, I shouldn't have done that. And wow, you just learned something. You learned something valuable. So a lot of times we beat ourselves up for things that we really should be applauding ourselves for, but we don't even realize it because we've been so conditioned to be beating ourselves up for everything. So transmute any negative thoughts into something positive. So if you think of something like, oh shit, I was dumb. Oh, okay. Well, actually, I'm super smart. I am super intelligent. I am gifted. I am blessed. You know, you got to transmute it. So for every negative thought you think about yourself and then you catch yourself doing it, think the opposite 3 times. What if an enlightened master curses you with infinite power? Well, first of all, curses only have power if you believe they do. So if you believe you're cursed, then technically, yeah, you're making yourself more cursed. Why do you think they always tell people, I'm going to curse you? Because they want you to know, so you believe it. So therefore, it actually gives some oomph to it. But in most cases, I mean, curses can be cleared. I clear curses every day with clearings. Soul guides can clear curses. So I don't know what you mean by infinite power, but curses are easy to clear. You send it back to sender. Send it to source, send it to Gaia. You can send it to anyone. Just because somebody gives you something doesn't mean you have to keep it. Same with a curse. Somebody's like, oh, here's a curse for you. Okay, well, fuck you. I don't want that. No, I'm not cursed. No, if you believe that you're cursed, then you're accepting it. Then they're going to be like, oh, here's a curse. And you're like, oh, thank you. Okay, I guess I'm cursed now. See, there you go. I accepted it. But if you're saying, fuck no, I'm not cursed, you're cursed. Get out of here. Then no, you're not. Most of the time when people say to me, they're like, I think somebody's cursed me. And then I check, it's just negative intention. In fact, it was really funny. This one person the other day, yesterday, said, oh, this such and such person has put a really horrible dark spell on me and this and that. And they were so concerned about this spell. And then we tune in and I'm like, so do they have any spells? No. Do they have any curses? No. It says right here, this person said they were cursed and they put this dark spell on them. Oh, we see the negative intentions being set their way, but they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't. They were like, no, they just sent negative intention. I'm like, so they didn't do a spell? They didn't do a curse? They're like, well, they tried, but they didn't know what they were doing. They just make shit up and think it's going to work. So I had to put that on the report. I was like, they had no idea what they were doing. There is no big spell and curse on you. You just believe that because you believe the bullshit that they're selling you. But no, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Most people don't know what they're doing. There's so many TikTok and Etsy witches out here that don't really know what the hell they're doing. No. Kat says, I'm rubber, you're glue. Whatever you send bounces off me and sticks to you. Yes, exactly, Kat. If you accept it and you say, you know, I believe that I am cursed. Yes, I believe it. Okay, then you are. You just cursed yourself, technically. And you know how many times people do that? We literally found somebody yesterday that cursed themselves. Literally yesterday. That's how common it is. Somebody cursed themselves just yesterday. Why did they do that? They were just talking bad about themselves. That's all it takes. You talk bad about yourself and you feel bad about yourself and you're constantly belittling and badgering yourself. Guess what happens? You curse yourself. So no, as I always said, if you didn't order it, send it back to the kitchen. And in most cases, the people that throw threats around and say, I'm going to curse you, I'm going to put a spell on you, they're full of shit. They don't know what they're doing. Most of the time, they're just watching videos on TikTok thinking they know everything. They don't. It's not like a professional. Yes, there are professional people out there that do professional black magic. And some of these spells are so powerful, they can kill people. We've seen it. We have found people that are in the ICU because some spells that they had put on them were so powerful. So yes, that is a thing. But most of those spells are passed down in spell books and grimoires in special families that have been practicing dark magic for generations. And those are the kind of people you don't want to mess with. Those are not the ones that you're going to find on Etsy, though. I'm just saying. Those are not typically the ones. Those are the ones that you'll just find by accident because the universe puts you in a very interesting pathway of learning. But in many of those cases as well, those people have also been body hacked. Like they've been body snatched too. There's a couple people where I have looked into the black magic that's being sent out, and the person that's sending out the black magic is not sovereign or has even been body snatched. And it's the entities that are doing it. So those are the only times where we've found professional magic that is actually effective in regards to the black stuff, the dark magic. There are some very real curses out there, but they are very rare in comparison to what we find. Exactly, Kat. And in most of those cases, those have been around for a long time. We've even found people's curses and spells that have been on them since Atlantis. A real curse and a real spell like that will stick with you from lifetime to lifetime. But most of this shit that people put around on the internet these days, no, most of that is not legit. Most of that is just wishful thinking on their part. So, and this is why I say, like, I have no, this is part of the reason why, though, that I say regular clearings are important, because even if you never know, if somebody really is sending you negative intention, we will find it. We will see it. Daniel Jackson. Lara, did you hear that so-and-so told someone that someone, no, see, people just, like I said, this is the internet for you these days. You know how there's always like a witch hunt, you know, online nowadays? Well, it's similar to the witch hunts of the past. People just make up shit and go with it. I'm surprised Etsy even allows it, to be honest. Like, I'm actually really surprised. You know that you can go on Etsy and there are people offering spirit release on there? Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. You can order all kinds of things on the internet these days, including spell work. Crazy stuff. Any negative energy being sent my way is canceled out and fully replaced with unconditional love and peace for all. I do not accept the discord. Yep. That is a good thing to recite anytime somebody you think is sending you bad juju. Yep, I'm going to say it again. Any negative energy being sent my way is canceled out and fully replaced with unconditional love and peace for all. I do not accept the discord. Well said, Kat. Remember how we've talked about this in psychic protection class, where we say there's 3 different types of clearings that you want to be prepared for? You want to do, there's an everyday clearing protocol, there's a weekly clearing protocol, and then there's an emergency clearing protocol. For an emergency clearing protocol, that would be a really great thing to have you recite while you're doing the emergency clearing protocol. Because, yeah, sometimes there are days where we just pick up random stuff while we're out and about, and there's going to be some negative energy we're bringing home with us. And it's a good idea to clear that before we get, you know, into our house and doing all the things that we do at home, because then we're just going to be moving all that negative energy around the house, right? So that's why we say there's a daily clearing protocol where you basically, as soon as you get home, especially like, let's say you're a nurse, right? Every morning when you get up, you do your psychic protection, you visualize your golden bubble, you do the self-clearing, you close all the portals, you make sure that you have a sea salt shower, you know what I mean? Like, you make sure you're all revitalized, you carry some organite or some crystals in your pocket. Especially if you work at a hospital, obsidian is really good. Snowflake obsidian is really good. So carry protection around with you as you're going about and about. You can have like a protection spray as long as it's like a, you know, not too smelly. As you're going around throughout the day at work, you scrub your hands in some sea salt or some kind of, you can also use like tea tree and other things to remove any astral parasites. Then as soon as you get home from the end of the day, you want to make sure, especially if you're wearing hospital scrubs, you want to take off the scrubs as soon as you get home, put them in the wash, add a couple tablespoons of sea salt to the wash, make sure that you cleanse everything, either jump in the shower and scrub down with sea salt or smudge yourself. So you can take a bundle of sage, for example, and as you get home, you smudge your house, you smudge by the door, you leave all your shoes by the door, smudging everything, even making sure to get your hair, right? Otherwise, you're going to be bringing all of that work energy into your house and you're going to be spreading it around the house. So that is like a self-clearing daily protocol where when you get home every day, you make sure you do a full cleanse. You ask your guys to clear you, ask to say any implants, any entities, any curses, any spells, anything like that. You can just run through the protocol really quick and ask your guys to clear you. Say any implants, any cords, anything, you just clear it. The other day, I went to do a clearing on a friend, and I said, does he have any cords? And they said, no, he cuts them every day. I was like, good on him. Nice. Because I was just checking on a friend, and this is a friend that does keep up with their psychic protection and spiritual hygiene. And they were having a tough day. So I just decided, well, I'm going to check in and make sure that they're sovereign. And they were mostly sovereign. There was one earthbound on them. And sure enough, that's what we checked. I was like, just want to check and see if the cords are there. Are there any cords? No, he cuts them every morning. I'm like, yes, that's what I like to hear. So it's very rare when you find people that don't have cords, because what are they doing? Every day they get up and they cut their cords every morning. So that is a really good thing to do. You could also do it at the end of the day when you're in the shower and you're scrubbing down with sea salt. Make sure that you're visualizing all cords disintegrating, washing away, dissolving down with the water, and just clearing themselves out every day. Make sure that you're doing that. And if you're not cutting your cords, they're going to build up on you and you're going to feel more tired and you're not even going to know why. And you're not going to be aware that all of these people are draining your energy. People drain your energy a lot as it is without you having cords. So just be aware that you're literally just giving your energy away for free if you're not cutting your cords every day. So one of the most important things that you could do. And yes, Leanne says, I change my clothes as soon as I get home. Yep, very important. Because especially for people who are nurses, and if you're coming home so tired and exhausted, chances are you've got a lot of cords. If you're an empathic person, if you're a compassionate person and you work in healthcare, you're going to have a lot of cords because you care. You make cords because you can, because you care. If you get too close to a client, this happens to me all the time. I'm still working on this, where I have a really difficult case and I get really emotional about it. And then I end up kind of noticing that I'm a little too close to the problem, too close to the case. And that's when I realize I have a cord with that client and I have to cut the cord. I use my selenite sword to cut cords every day. Since I saw how Lara talked about it, I use the sword because I cannot reach my back. So yes. You can cut your cords in just dissolving them in the shower. You visualize those cords, melting away in the water. They'll cut. You don't have to use something fancy every time, although it's more fun that way. My dad was an EMT and leave his clothes in the basement near the washer. See, that's a good thing to do. You do not want to wear the clothing you've worn out in public all day around your house. You don't want to do that. I don't care if you are in food and bev. If you are in food and bev or any form of just food service, that's another thing you're going to need. Any form of retail too, because you're around people all day long. So if you're seeing a lot of people during your work period, chances are you're going to need to get rid of that energy as soon as you get home. I'm an empath, Leanne says. People come to emotionally jump on me often, so I definitely have to use protections. I use coconut oil and sea salt in the shower every night. Good idea. That's how I love to do it. I just make a paste with it. I take sea salts and I take coconut oil and I take a bunch of other essential oils and things and I add them in there and I scrub down with it. Is that why some health workers kind of shut off or they don't seem to have or show emotions? As I mentioned at the beginning of the chat, I was in paramedic training. I spent 2 years basically writing EMS all the time. I would wait at the firehouse for an EMS call to go out. And I was only 18 at the time. So, I was quite young. And when I was doing this work, and I ended up being very emotionally jarred by some of the cases. And I was trying very hard to basically have a thicker skin. So you do kind of work on your ability to remain stoic. Like you do kind of, in a way, get desensitized over time. And I think part of the reason for that is because you kind of have to remain impartial. If you're in an emotional wreck, you're not getting shit done, especially in an emergency situation like that. So people who are in, especially in regards to healthcare where lives are at stake and people have to see really heavy stuff all the time, then yeah, we do kind of emotionally distance ourselves. We kind of, I hate to say it, but it's almost like a form of disassociation. where we kind of have to step back. And I noticed this too, that sometimes when you bring it home, like when you take off the work clothes, that's when the emotions tend to come out. I've noticed it's when you're in that quiet time and the chaos is kind of settled down that you tend to notice that feeling, that you feel emotional about something. So I think it's a form of training. It's a form of programming in a way to kind of desensitize ourselves so we can get shit done without having an emotional reaction to it. But don't think that they're not going home and crying into their soup, because I'm just saying many of them do that. They may seem very stoic at work, but then as soon as we get home and we start thinking about what happened at work, that's when the emotions come out. It's very hard. You have to have a very strong stomach to work in healthcare. I even tried to do it. I worked as a vet tech too. I was trying all the things. I've done so many different jobs. I wanted to be a vet tech. So I wanted to be a veterinarian. So I was basically working as a vet tech for a while. And the surgeries I could handle the injured animals, but having to euthanize animals, couldn't do it. Nope. Couldn't do it. So there's certain things that you might be able to stomach and handle, but then once you get more involved in the work, you realize there's even more stuff that comes up that you are going to have to deal with. And that's when sometimes it's like, okay, no, this is too much. So that's kind of how I've been. I've tried everything. I even did anti-poaching for a while until that became too much, until they shot a rhino right in front of the house. And I was like, okay, nope, can't do this anymore either. So, you got to keep trying things to see what you can handle and what you can't. When I first started doing spirit release, I did not have the thick skin that I have now. It has taken me 2 years to develop it right now. And to be honest, I still have days where I am basically like becoming an emotional wreck because I haven't been able to process the emotions properly. If you keep building up those emotions without releasing them, then it's going to catch up to you at some point. So it's one thing to remain stoic, but you don't want to bottle up the emotions. It's good to have a time so you can release it and let it out. Plant lavender in front of the house. Oh, that's lavender and roses. Rosemary as well is another really good one for psychic protection out in front of the house. I worked for mental health and was so close to some of my clients that 3 of them lovingly came through in a reading. Oh, I love that, Karen. In a perfect world, this is how it would be, though, that we would have more opportunities. We wouldn't be so split up between so many different patients or clients. You know what I mean? There'd be more people involved in this sort of thing, and we would be able to have more compassion for people who are in their late stages and things. My father died in a hospice alone. I was in England and I had no money, so I had no way of coming back to the US anyway, even if I wanted to. It was an awful time. It really was. And to know that somebody that you love more than anything dies alone in hospice is one of the saddest things I could think of. So, if there were more opportunities for people to get more involved in these things, it would be so much better. But unfortunately, people, especially in regards to end of life care, they just kind of get pushed aside and they don't get the care that they truly deserve in most cases because the nurses are so split up between so many people. There's not enough people in this line of work, so to speak. So for those of you who are kind of like interested in nursing and, and end of life care, death doulas are one of the things that our whole society needs more of. Because we wouldn't have so many earthbounds around if we had more doulas. Thank you, guys. Oh, it was a wonderful chat today. Always a pleasure. Happy birthday to your daughter today, Summer. Mwah! Lots of love. Bye, everybody.